Hello and welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast. Thanks for joining. Thanks for listening in today. It's really great that you're here. I have got a really beautiful and inspiring episode to share with you today. Before we start, try and imagine in 1 year your father dying, leaving school, and then becoming pregnant. That's in 1 year. Now imagine that you're only 15 years old. It's pretty hard to get your head around, right? Well, this is the story. This is the journey of my guest today. Her name's Suraya O'Brien, and you'll be sitting there in awe of her, really, of what she's been through and how she's come out the other side and what she's achieved. Really is inspiring, and you're just going to. She's just beautiful on inside and out. She's such an amazing human. I'll let her share her story. So, without any further ado, I bring to you the wonderful Suraya. Suraya, welcome to the Soulful Mamas podcast.
Hi, Maria. Thank you so much for having me.
You are so welcome. This is such a pleasure and a privilege for me. I won't talk anymore. I think we'll just dive straight in. Would you like to share with us your journey into motherhood?
Yeah, I've thought a little bit about where to start. One of my oldest friends who knew me when I got pregnant would say that my son saved my life. And I think about what she was referring to. So I was 15 when I fell pregnant. And I think what she was referring to is that I was a little bit like the fearless 2-year-old who's walking too close to the edge and doesn't know the danger, except I was a teenager version. The year that I fell pregnant was a really big year. So my father had died. I had left school and left home and then fell pregnant, sort of like in that order. And all within the space of a year. So it felt really, it did feel like a divine intervention of sorts, because even the way that he was conceived was kind of, I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty details, but it was almost like you could say that it was barely even an event. So really surprising. And I was living like with a friend of mine, and we were kind of like, we were kind of quite wayward. My mum was giving her mum some money to sort of take care of my expenses. And my friend had fallen pregnant. So it wasn't in my mind physically like that might be what's happening to me. It was more like I think, almost like taking on her experience. And I started to imagine and think and imagine if that was me. And I think she went on to lose her baby, and I went on to miss my period and go, oh man, maybe I actually am. And I was doing a sewing course at the time. I had left school, but I had left with an exemption, allowing me to leave school early as long as I went and did some study. And so I had chosen a sewing course. And I went to walk down the street to family planning and have a pregnancy test. And I just imagine to this day, like I'm sitting in front of this nurse at family planning, and she's doing my notes, and my little P and my test is sitting over there on the corner, and then she's like, "Oh, you are pregnant." And she's got this little 15-year-old girl sitting in front of her, and she's like, what do you think you might like to do about that? Do you think you'll keep it? Do you think you'll abort it, basically? And I was like, I don't think I will. No, I don't think that I will be doing that. I think I'll be keeping it. Thank you. Yes, thank you. I'll be keeping it. And she went, I'll just book you in anyway. And I was like, oh, but I just said, no, thank you. So I would just book you in anyway, because then you won't, have to wait for an appointment if you need it, da, 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 da. And I've thought back lately, and I've sort of been like, that was all I was offered. You've got this 15-year-old girl sitting in front of you who's just found out she's growing life inside of her, and you're offering her one option but no other. So like there's a whole opportunity there for a wraparound service, and it doesn't need to be biased one way or the other, the options, but it should certainly, in my view, shouldn't be biased in that way. And so I just sort of look back and think, that's interesting. It's interesting that society provides that there wasn't more of an option or more to offer at that point. I will say that in my community, what I received and the support that I received later on, I'm really grateful for, and was much more. But just like at that very point where there could have been a lot more, it was very lacking. So that was when I found out I was pregnant. I went on to feel really strongly. I was quite headstrong in my recklessness, and always have been. Like my mum would always say, I don't know how she would put it exactly, but she would say that I sort of directed her parenting style, which was allow me to make my own decisions. And she said that wasn't like her conscious choice, that was how I asked it to be.
Yeah.
And so when I had the impulse within me and the intuition to say, I will choose to keep this child at the tender young age of 15, it was strong. It was really clear, and there wasn't much wavering. But I often wonder if ignorance was bliss, like my question in my mind was, can I do it? I think I can, then I shall. It wasn't much more to it than that. It was like, if I didn't think I could do it, then that would be a reason not to do it. But I do think I can do it, so I will. And I just moved forward from there. I smoked roll-your-own cigarettes. I had just bought a fresh packet that morning, and I gave them away. I think I had maybe one puff to get myself to sleep that night, and other than that, quit cold turkey. So that the instincts into motherhood were very strong and natural to me. I didn't seem to not know what to do. It felt like I knew exactly what to do. I think I had, maybe throughout my pregnancy, I might have had, like, I said, okay, no alcohol, no drugs, obviously, but I had like maybe one small wine and one beer on 2 separate occasions through the whole thing. And it was just like very obvious to me. But what I did struggle with while I was pregnant was trying to tell my own mum that was the position that I had found myself in. We went on a holiday to Australia. I must have been at least 3 months, 4 months. I had a bump. She didn't know. I was trying to tell her at different stages. The words just would not come out of my mouth. We went to Dream World, the theme park, and we went on all these rides that said don't ride if you're pregnant, like the giant drop and the Tower of Terror and things like that. And then eventually we came back and I went to visit her one weekend, and she had been having a party, and I'd gone to bed at like 9 o'clock, and she had friends over type of party that evening. And in the morning we woke up and she said to me, Suraya, one of my friends asked me if you were pregnant. Are you? And I went, no. I still couldn't, even though the opportunity was being presented, I was still like, the right words just would not come out of my mouth. And she said, Suraya. And I said, yes. And she's like, oh, congratulations, through her gritted teeth. And I went toddling off on the bus back home to Hamilton from Auckland. And then she rang me up when I got home and she was like, oh, why did you not tell me options? And you didn't have to be this way. It's a thing in my family. I'm one of 7. I've got 4 sisters and me, and 3 of those sisters all had their first child as a teenager out of wedlock. And my mum herself was pregnant at 15 and got married then with her first of us. It's just a thing, and I think she was wanting something different from me. That's all. And she just needed to express that. And I was crying and she was crying. And then we put all that aside and went, no, well, that's not what's happening. I was already 5.5 months pregnant at that point and was very clearly not just putting on some extra weight. And she supported me more than she probably knows, but she set me up in a little 1-bedroom flat, and she brought all extra furniture that she had on hand, and she arranged it all, and she arranged and helped me to get the independent youth benefit, and she was there at the birth, and even though her initial reaction was shock, she really kicked it into gear and went, right, this is my daughter's choices. I shall continue to support them as I always have. And we went from there. Oh,
Gosh, that's powerful.
yeah.
I love that inner mother of you as a child, as a teenager, but that mother instinct was so strong within you still. And then again for your own mother, that her mother instinct took out, like kicked in for her daughter, her child, her grandchild. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. It's very, very treasured. And now from there, so it was I don't think I could register until I had had that conversation with my mum. So it wasn't until that came about that I then actually engaged the services of a midwife and started actually planning for the birth. I think I was just a little bit in like, everything will be all right. I'm 5 foot tall and bulletproof, and I walk through the world and everything works out fine. And which is true, but I obviously needed my mum's help. And so at that point, when I told her, I was actually living on an air mattress. Feel a bit emotional. I was living on an air mattress in the living room at one of her friends' houses, because the space that I had with my friend when I first felt pregnant just wasn't sustainable. I think her mum probably actually eventually kicked me out. I had done a bit of bouncing around, and I had been at my brother's house, and then that sucked. And so I went to another friend's house, and then I was at this friend's house, and then she had found me space on an air mattress on the living room floor at one of her friends' space places. So it was like, okay, now I can get a midwife and I can start planning for this birth. And we get a little 1-bedroom flat, and I get an income. And I chose the most beautiful midwife just by going, oh, I like that name in the telephone book, back when we had telephone books. And she was a godsend. She was just so beautiful inside, and she didn't make me feel like there was anything that I couldn't do that anybody else could do. And I planned for the birth, and I said, no, I will have, it will be completely natural, and I'd like a water birth, yes. And she said, gave me all the options, and I just quite naturally chose all the very natural ones. And Ethan, my son, ended up coming 6.5 weeks early. He was 7 pounds 2 ounces at 6.5 weeks early. And we tried to do the calculation. I thought if he had had 6.5 weeks longer to cook, he might have been, because they put on about a pound a week at that stage. So I think that was another divine intervention. He was ready. This was a soul who very clearly wanted to come to me at that time and be here then, and there wasn't two ways about it. He wasn't, no, I can't wait, no, I'm not coming a bit later. We got some growing together to do. We will grow up together. The midwife said it was the very textbook, natural, perfect delivery. He came within 3 minutes of the first push, kind of thing. And I was left in the room as they took him to weigh him and wash him and whatever it is they do, which I would allow them to do now. I'd probably choose different, but they took him out of the room, and I was just having a little rest. And I start to feel more pains, and I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? And they come back and they're like, oh, that's okay, you've just got to deliver the afterbirth. And I'm going, oh my God, my whole entire life, I have wondered what happens to the other end of the umbilical cord, and I never knew. I literally never knew until it was coming out of me, because he had come early. And I hadn't been able to finish the antenatal classes, like the course of antenatal classes. I never got to that point. And I always think that is so funny that I didn't know. I don't know if I hadn't asked that question, or, I mean, now it seems obvious that that part comes out later, but you have to deliver it. It's another delivery. It was not another baby. It was a beautiful heart-shaped placenta. And they took him to the newborn intensive care unit and put him in the incubator just for the first night as a precaution, but he was absolutely fine. And then he spent a week not in the intensive care, but in the newborn unit of some kind, just not quite as intensive. And he wasn't in the incubator, he was just on a little Billy Rubin bed, because he had gotten some jaundice and they just wanted to keep close eyes on him. But he was the biggest baby in there. They didn't not have, and they let me stay in the hospital upstairs, not beside him, but upstairs. They had room for me, and they allowed me to stay on the ward for that whole time. And then they said, would you like to go? This is when I feel like the community services the wraparound services began, and they said, would you like to go to the Mothercraft unit? It's some place that we let people go, usually who need help with learning how to breastfeed, or they might have twins or triplets. And I was like, oh, yeah, that sounds great. So we went there, and that was like booked in for a week. And the Friday came, and it was time for me to take him home for the first time. And I was sitting on the couch crying. And the lovely nurse came up to me. And she said, what's so wrong? All right. And I said, I'm just scared to go home. And they said, well, let me just see what we can do. Would you like to stay another week? And I said, yes, please.
Oh.
And so they allowed me to stay there for 2 weeks. And I think that was a case of creating a box for me that didn't exist. And I really appreciate that. Because he was so tiny, he was just so sleepy. We had to actually wake him up to feed. So he wasn't feeding well. And I was trying my best to learn how to breastfeed. He wasn't latching on very well because he was just tired. He was so sleepy. He didn't barely make a noise. He didn't barely cry. And eventually I said, okay, so I've got to go home now. And went home to this little 1-bedroom flat with my little baby. And I said, I got there, and I don't know how long it was. I can't quite remember before I developed quite a severe mastitis infection because he wasn't draining quite well, and I had to go back to hospital. And so they allowed him on the ward with me. While I was in there for at least a week or two, they were trying to clear this infection, and it eventually had to be surgically drained. And so I had that as an operation, but they had tried for a whole week up until then to sort of clear the infection with IV antibiotics every 4 hours or whatever. It just wasn't. I don't respond apparently. So they did it surgically, and that was fine from there on. It was quite weird actually, because they had, I don't know, I've never seen this, and I don't know exactly the methodology, but obviously that's just what they do. But they had like to cut a slit beside my areola, but they didn't sew it up or anything. They just left a drain hanging out of it. And so it was just like this hole that they just allowed it to close all by itself. And they're going to me, oh, you could still breastfeed if you want to. And I'm like, look, there's a big hole there. I didn't feel right. So I continued to sort of breastfeed on one side and top him up with formula till he was about 7.5 months. But I gave up then because I was lopsided. Might sound a bit silly, but I was like, what, and that was when I think I went out for the first time. When he was about 7 months, I spent a night out. But actually, after that hospital stay, we went back to my little 1-bedroom flat, and I was like, I think then it was like the baby blues they were sort of saying, and it was stuff like that. And I was very like, no appetite and stuff like that. And my stepfather, whom my mum and him were no longer together, but he actually had come to the hospital when I was giving birth. He wasn't in the room, but he was around and trying to be really supportive. And he was a single man living by himself. So I think my mum suggested, would you maybe like to get a house and flat with Suraya and her new baby so she doesn't have to live alone? And that was the solution. We very quickly moved in there. And that gave me that sense of security. We had shared cooked meals, and I wasn't so alone and so like overwhelmed, because I can remember a visitor coming and they were like, oh, has he had a bath? And I said, I haven't bathed him because I'm too scared. Like, like, oh, would you like, let's do it together. I was terrified of this tiny little baby. And just things were like, I can remember I had bought this bassinet from the secondhand shop, and it was old, but it was in good condition. But this cold, those concrete block flats. It was cold. It was middle of winter. He was born on the 18th of May. And I had pulled him up out of this bassinet, and it was full with water. Like there was a depth of water in there, I don't know, from like condensation in the mat. And it was just like, you know, like I didn't feel as confident as I had when I said, I know I can do this, so I will, back when I was choosing to keep it. And so our journey there was like, the midwife came for 6 weeks, regular visits, and then they put me on to, I had a plunket nurse who was specifically for teen mums who came to your home and visited regularly. She taught me at some point how to get them to sleep through the night when we're struggling with that. We went to the local high school, and me and another teen mum shared our story with the Sacred Heart girls, so we could deter them from following in our footsteps, I guess is the idea. And we also, we spoke at 2 schools. What's the other fancy one on River Road?
Dio.
Yeah. We went there as well. And I also had Parents as First Teachers woman come visit. I think she came monthly, 3 monthly. I think they came at different periods up until he was about 3 years old. And that's sort of like people that came into my home regularly to make me give me ideas and tips, and help me alongside their support of my family and my friends and things like that. So we moved around a bit. I was very focused. All of that early stuff of mothering felt quite natural once I gained some confidence, but with those supports, especially I think Parents as First Teachers was a great program. They just made it simple. It's like things you do naturally that without, toys you can make, simple, their motor skills and all of that. So I felt quite good about that. Things kind of began to take a slightly different turn when he was around 2. I started to feel like I wanted to get out of the house. This was like the monotony, I guess the isolation and the loneliness. All my friends are at a completely different stage of life, obviously. And my solution was to go to university. So I thought that was like a really acceptable way to get away from my child, which sounds awful, because I was starting to, I just think I needed a break. And so that was like a way that I felt like I could do it. But I also thought, okay, you go to university, you get a job. And I was like, I can line that up with full-time work once he starts school. It seemed logical. It didn't quite go exactly like that, but I did manage to go to university. So I had left school halfway through 5th form before I even fell pregnant. It was nothing to do with that. I just wasn't into school at that point. They wouldn't work with me, so I had left. But at that time, university, there was a course called Certificate of University Preparation, which didn't have an age limit or age. There was no so it actually was only 6 months long, and actually probably achieved Certificate of University Preparation earlier than I would have if I had gone to 7th form at high school. But I think they've changed it now. It's like this little loophole they hadn't quite thought of or something. And I managed to do my degree in a Bachelor of Social Sciences in Psychology and Sociology. And I came out of it and I was like, right, okay, cool. Now you get a job. And I went to like a recruitment agency and I said, oh, well, can you help me get a job? And they're like, okay, we'll do some tests and whatnot. And they're like, well, I'm sorry, but you haven't had any work experience. So maybe you should just go work at the warehouse or something. And I was like, huh? I don't get it. Like, I didn't even understand that my degree didn't actually qualify me to do anything. Like there was like this disconnection level of comprehension of what I had actually just achieved, I guess. And it didn't, like I had worked at some bars on like part-time work, you know, here or there, pouring beer. But that was like customer service. So I didn't see why I needed more customer service skills at the warehouse kind of thing or something. So I fell back on those sewing skills that I had learned at that sewing course, which was always my intention. Why I had learnt to sew there was because I had aspirations of becoming a fashion designer at some point, and I thought, okay, learn to sew, and then back then you could only do fashion design down in Wellington, so then I moved to Wellington. But I never did that because I had my son. So I thought, okay, I'll go. I had my first full-time job working at Anna S in Morrinsville after I had done university, and Ethan started school at 5 years old, and he was um he was he was doing really well. The only thing that they would say, his teachers would say, was, his conflict resolution needs work. And I was like, he's 5. What do they even mean? I think it was like he had gone to kindergarten and he had done home-based childcare and all of that stuff. So it wasn't, but he didn't have a house full of brothers and sisters to practice on. Not sure. But yeah, the end of my first, I spent the next big, huge part of my journey and my story is that I spent my first paid holiday in the Henry Bennett Centre of falling ill with drug-induced psychosis on Boxing Day of that year. So I had done my very first year full-time at work, and then achieved that status where you get 2 weeks paid holiday once you've worked a certain amount of time. And I spent that hospitalized with drug-induced psychosis. And I look back and I think, so somewhere towards the end of university, I developed a drug habit with marijuana use, and it just increased. My use just increased with trying to manage the whole of mummying and daddying and full-time working. And I mean, it was the level, it was the amount, it was the mixing it with alcohol, it was the emotional immaturity and, my ability to function. And it was really, really scary. So that actually went on to occur 2 more times in my life after that. This was like, I think only a couple of years between the first. Obviously, I thought the first time that it happened, it was like, oh, you're just so young, and it wasn't really the substances weren't really the problem. I sort of found this way of looking at it that allowed me to justify. You just got to learn to use better. You've just got to have some rules. Just don't buy it. Just smoke other people's. Just don't, don't do this, do that. Which clearly didn't work. And I guess by the time it happened the very third time, it was like the recovery from it was the hardest and the longest. I'm sort of like, I want people to understand what I'm trying to share, but I'm not sure how many details that are really required. Like, it's it's a level of psychosis where it's actually caused by me going, okay, something's not right here. I need to reduce my usage. I need to stop my usage. And then the effect of stopping is that I can't eat and I can't sleep. And it can be like a 6-week downward spiral from like manic sort of periods to then become psychotic. You know what I kind of think is kind of I feel comforted in some sense by like my expression of what comes out and my personal expression of psychosis is just kind of like sweet, and there's nothing like scary that I do. It can be kind of like a bit dangerous because, like maybe you shouldn't be driving, you haven't slept for 6 weeks, that kind of danger. But it's not like the type when somebody becomes violent or aggressive. It's kind of like here's an example of one of the things I did in the last psychosis was I drove to Auckland and set up a little store with all of my things in the middle of a square at 5 a.m. in the morning. And as people were coming to work, I was saying, would you like something for free? Like, everything's free. Like, it's free. And I had my guitar there. And this woman came up to me and they said, oh, are you really giving it away? And I'm like, yes, please. I love you. Take it away. Take it away. And they were like, oh, we have to give you something. And so they said, we will have take your guitar, but we're going to come back. And they come back with $30 and they gave it to me. And so this was like a very wholesome exchange that I felt like they didn't want to take advantage. And that guitar has probably gone to really good use. I'm sure that they're making beautiful music with it. But like the way that it expressed from me was always like different things that don't make a lot of sense, but they're quite harmless and they're not that. But to actually you lose your grip on reality for me was very scary nonetheless. I have just been someone who needs to learn from my own experience, and I can't be told. I need to apparently learn from my own mistakes and my own experience. And third time was the charm. Like, it doesn't feel a chore to now live a completely different lifestyle from that one. It's like not even a question. It doesn't feel like, nowadays, a bar of chocolate feels like my drug, and I've kind of gone on and learned a lot from that. But as a mum, knowing what those experiences maybe took away from my experience in motherhood, knowing that I only ever experienced one pregnancy. I'm 42 now. I'm single. I've been single for over 10 years. There was never another opportunity. I wanted, more children. The fact that I had him was like just the biggest I'm just so grateful for the clarity in that decision, because if I hadn't, where would I be now? I would be like desperate for motherhood, that experience. and I would, it's not something that you can necessarily, I don't think that I could have, had that resource to make that happen without, I don't know, it never happened. It never happened another time. So I feel like I would have missed out. And that would have been a really hard thing for me. But I hold on to it. He is now at 25 years old, my best flatmate that anybody could ever have. He still lives with me and shares his two beautiful dogs with me. I think there would be a lot of challenges that his absence would have made unbearable in my life. And so the fact that he is here and he's such a pillar of strength, and I can get to watch him flourish so closely, and watch him making his decisions and sharing his life and his experiences around the breakfast table is like, yeah, it's not just the icing, it's the cake. It's not,
That is, thank you so much for sharing all of that, Suraya. It's really profound and such a journey, and credit to you for being so strong. But that, like you've mentioned, that clarity you had at the ripe old age of 15, that absolute knowing, because, oh my gosh, I'm just thinking back to myself at 15. I can't imagine. I don't think I had clarity on anything. So, to have that moment of such maturity, and a knowing, it's like this direct communication with him before he's even earthside. It's like, this is what we're doing. Remember, we agreed on this, and I'm coming. And here you are. And even though you've had your obvious trials and challenges, you're so resourceful and resilient and so strong. And just him still choosing as a 25-year-old to live with you says it all for me. He doesn't need to do that. He could be anywhere, but he's with his pillar, which is also you. So, amazing.
Yeah.
And where has that led to you right now at this point of your journey? Yeah, where has that taken you to?
I spent the last few years really healing, really cementing in a self-care practice that is going to be like just learning about myself, understanding what I need and how to meet my own needs, and letting go of, like my position is now not mother, it's flatmate. It's still mother, but I'm not providing any things that take time. I don't cook for him, I don't shop for him, I don't clean for him any longer. So there was always a bit of that transition into finding my space, my place, my purpose, my next purpose. And so I've taken this time as I've been healing to just tune in. My methodology in my healing it came from a place, because after this last psychosis, I actually spent quite a long time, maybe it felt like a year. It could have been 6 months to a year, where I was kind of near, I want to say bedridden, just like so lethargic. I spent most of my days in bed, and so lacking in any ability to feel anything good or bad that even a shower wasn't I couldn't get even simple joy from something like a shower, where I have always done that. I've always known to look for those simple joys, but I couldn't feel it. And it took quite a long time. So as I come out of that and began to rebuild and find my next sort of new life, because I did have to change a lot, change a whole friends and change, activity and everything. I just really heavily leant on this idea that I only do things when I feel natural enthusiasm for them. And if that is not there, there is no obligation or pressure. And I feel kind of like I've had like a luxury of having the time and space to do that, because it's not something that's easy to find, but I literally had nothing going on. So, like I say, my son had just become the right age, and I, had no job and nothing, nothing had been expected or been coming from me for about a year anyway. So there really was no expectations. And from there, I found myself loving just taking care of my home, finding little ways to improve it, learning about things, that how to make them from scratch, being out in my garden, growing fruits and vegetables. All of these really just like back to basics things, but I'm like, this is me. This is all I love. I actually am a home mother, not a home wife. I'm a home mother, like that is what's really natural, and that's really what, for me, just brings me true joy. So I set about doing that and allowing myself to just do that. And one day I discovered that, I've got these sewing skills and I like all these natural things, and I wonder what, I own, I started working on trying to develop a heavy flow G-string period underwear, because I recognized that there wasn't anything out there. I would be typing into Google, I'm like, okay, I'm switching all my stuff to more natural products, and I'd like to get some period underwear. I've tried this, but like, I'm a person who just wears G-strings 100% of the time. So to have to outlay for a whole lot of underwear that is not the style that I'm comfortable in, it was quite hard to do, because I was like, it's gonna be uncomfortable to wear. And I had also put on a lot of weight in that year, so the fluctuation of weight was also like a factor of like, you can't just outlay, and plus I had no money, I wasn't working. So in terms of like the struggle to use what was there, it actually made more sense for me to go, I'm going to see if I can create my dream period underwear. Is it just that it's not possible, or is it that nobody else has ever taken the time to see if it's possible? And I do like to do what people say can't be done quite often. Like that gives me a bit of joy, or like, to be able to explore new frontiers. So I've set about to, I did about 13 iterations to perfect my design of this heavy flow G-string period underwear. And it's been, I think, at least when did I was doing some like getting the accounts up to date the other day, and I was like, oh, that one's from 2020. We're in 2024. That one was from early 2022. So it could be we've been working on it for a while now. But it is just beginning to emerge, a new period underwear brand called Flow Riders, that will be delivering the world's first heavy flow G-string period underwear made from organic cotton.
That's amazing. Gee, you're amazing. I love that you live off. And again, it's like this divine download. do a sewing course. And here, all these years later, serving you to create this amazing product for yourself, yes, but also the rest of the world. Well, the woman population of the world anyway. So
Yes, I'm very excited to be able to share it, to be at this point where I've gained funding and I can actually start to build a brand that I'm really allowing my own ideals of the world to guide the ethics of the brand. And I've got kind of quite kind of almost strict, like the way that I'm sort of thinking, okay, the packaging will be unbleached paper, because why have colors and dyes when you don't need them? Just like strict in that sense.
yeah.
Why have 95% organic cotton when you can have 100%? And I think that will end up being our point of difference. Not to mention, the design itself will be quite different from what anybody has ever seen before. And that full mobility, full flexibility of movement that you can get from a G-string. Some people say, oh yeah, why not be sexy while you're menstruating? And I'm like, okay, yeah, that wasn't the point that I was going for. That's just what's comfortable for me. So I can understand why, yeah, that could be cool, but we're not going about lace, and it's not, that's actually not the highlight here. The highlight here is comfort.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And keeping that consistency of what makes you comfortable throughout the month. And especially at that time, because that's when you want to feel the most comfortable. And if that is, you don't want to change, like you're saying, for that. So amazing. And amazing that it was your, the idea and the design and 13 iterations, like you're saying, and just to get it to where it is now. And I know you've worked so hard, and to witness your journey, this beautiful female founder of this really unique, brand and company. It's just so exciting, Suraya. You're kind of like a way shower for other women, particularly in business, and you're staying true. That's why one of the things I love is you're so authentic and true to your values, and you're not going to be swayed this way or this way to fit in a different box. Like you've created your own beautiful little circle of this is me and this is what it is, and it's kind of take it or leave it. And I can imagine it's going to be a lot of I'm taking it. Are you live yet, or how do people go about even purchasing the product?
Yeah, we are doing a pre-sales phase currently. So that's available with a very quite a high discount, quite a big discount compared to what it will be when full retail. So that at the moment it's like 20% off. And there's also even further off if you are willing to jump in the deep end and buy in the bulk. We've got bulk numbers with further discounts. And then that's we aren't 100% clear on the date we'll be able to deliver on those pre-orders yet. So we are giving that discount because we appreciate that this is for the really extra super keen and trusting ones of everybody. I have done extensive testing with a group of women who were early adopters and really keen enough to purchase earlier on and test out the pattern for me and make sure that I've got it comfortable for all sizes and flows. And so you will be able to read some reviews on there. And then aside from that, I would just love to collect anybody's email who just wants to be kept up to date for when we do launch. And they are just, more of a like, let's just wait and see what you do with this, then that's absolutely fine. I would love to be able to keep you up to date in that sense as well. So there's options there on the website currently to pre-order or to just sign up to the email list, and that is flowriders.co.nz.
Fantastic. And I'll add that to the show notes as well. And you're on social media and you do some really really cool posts as well. So yeah, do follow along Soraya's journey. I just love you're so open and transparent, and this is you and this is what you're doing, and your gift back to the world is this beautiful creation, and that creation that's been birthed through your healing journey, that space and ability to be able to be with yourself in that space and allow, you know, those little embers to ignite even more, and you're almost, it's like a rebirth of you, like you're saying, friendships and activities and ways of life completely changed. And here you are, this rising, this phoenix rising, and with it you've birthed your not another baby in the human form, but this is your baby,
The business baby.
The business baby, but it's yeah, passion project into something that's going to be really, you know, serve so many people. And yeah, thank you. Beautiful.
Thank
Wow.
you.
Oh, Suraya, thank you so much. What a yeah, what a journey. And yeah, I'd love to, we'll continue this conversation another time. But before we do say goodbye and let you go, share with us now something that keeps your soul full, just for you. What does Soraya's soul need to be full? How does it?
I need unrestricted time, even if it's just one day full, in my garden. I need to like know that I don't have to rush while I'm out there. That's what I mean by unrestricted time. I need like that whole day where there's nothing on the cards and the sun is shining and I can step out into my garden and potter around with no pressure or intention for what does or doesn't get done, but just to enjoy the space.
Yeah,
That's the biggest thing, among many other things. That is one of my must-haves.
absolutely. It's that something that you know, for you it's the garden, but having that space to be, however long, you know, for some people it might be an hour, 2 hours, or a day, but to do whatever it is when they're dropping into their creative joy, that it's an unhurried kind of non-negotiable time to do that. So I love that you have, you know, you're honoring that, and you've been able to do that, and that's where this creation came from, right? And this whole new version of you as well. But you in a way that you want to step forward into the world and continue your journey. So it's, yeah, beautiful. Oh, well, thank you so much for sharing that with us. I feel like we could actually talk for hours because there's just like a little snapshot.
Thank you, Maria. Thank you for the
Yeah.
opportunity to share. It's a process and a beautiful space that you've created, but it's a beautiful process just to be able to share.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll see you again soon.
Okay. Thank you. See you soon.
See you soon. Wow, isn't Suraya just an inspiration? An amazing journey, an amazing story that continues. And I think anyone listening to that, you know, she's overcome so many challenges, opportunities, whatever you want to call them, along her way, and she's still striving and succeeding and flourishing and just doing really great things in the world. Really great things in the world. And, you know, this girl at 15 thrown into grown up, the world of grown ups very quickly, and navigating all that encompasses, and coming to a place where she's found her place in the world. I just love, you know, the breadcrumbs of the sewing course when she left school that served her now to create this pattern of this first in the world heavy flow period underwear, G-string. So that those skills served her really well. And also that dream that she had as a child, as a teenager, to become a fashion designer. And it just shows that our dreams do come true. It just, once you put it out there and allow that that magnetism to come, and so it's probably not in the way that she thought, but she is designing and creating a whole new product into the world. It's such a big creation process and amazing. So yeah, a lot of takeaways in there. You'll probably, I don't know, you might even want to listen to it again just to let some things just go in even a little bit deeper. But firstly, that need for wraparound support for mothers, and definitely our young mums, but not just our young mums, all mums, I think, all mothers, because regardless of age, not one of us know what we're doing when that first baby comes along. There's no instruction manual, and no one baby, no one little soul is the same as another. They're all unique. So sometimes we're really winning, and sometimes we don't know what we're doing at all. And it's okay to really ask for help, and for that help to be available when we're feeling a little bit lost or floundering a little bit. So yeah, wraparound support for the mums is so important. And number 2, that trusting your own instinct and intuition. And even as a 15-year-old girl, really, she had this and it was strong. So yeah, that's really powerful. And number 3, honoring the path to healing in the way that feels most aligned for you. So that's going to look different for all of us, but honoring that path is so important. And for the importance of cementing in self-care. I like the way she used the word cementing in self-care by tuning into self. It's an integral part of that healing journey. So however that looks, and like Suraya said, for her a big part of that medicine is being in the garden and having that unhurried approach without the, because when you're navigating big health challenges, particularly in the mental health realm, being rushed and hurried just adds to the sense of overwhelm and potential anxiety, and things escalate pretty quickly. So to allow that healing to unfold naturally in a regulated system is so important. Go and have a look at Suraya's social pages, Instagram, Facebook, Flow Riders, and also her website, flowriders.co.nz, and you can either get on the pre-sale purchases where you get a really good discount, and if nothing else, just join her emailing list, because then you can get updated with how everything's going and tracking along. And she's got such great information out there as well, just to learn. So yeah, go and get in amongst it, and yeah, I just wish you a really beautiful, soul-filling day ahead, and do really make it a non-negotiable today and every day that you do something, even if it's just a little thing that truly keeps your soul full. Okay, bye.